Everybody, this is George Kane from Lead Like a Boss. I've got a great guest for you today. Top of mind gifts, Dean Stanzel. He has helped thousands of businesses to enhance their image, build their sales with great promotional gifts. I'm not talking water bottles and frisbees, guys. This is something that is a cut above the rest, and you'll get what that means in a second. Dean, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks so much. I love and appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. So, Dean, I know you've been an entrepreneur at heart, probably most of your adult life. How did you end up at Top of Mind Gifts? And we'll discuss what Top of Mind Gifts is in a second. But I want to know a little bit about your journey. And remember, our audience are entrepreneurs that are on the journey. Some of them are different levels. Some of them are struggling. Some of them are doing great and want to do even better. So we want to share some of the tips and tricks and things that you've learned along the way that we can pass on to them.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of an interesting story, and I'll start with saying I'm an engineering physicist by education.
Oh,
So
okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, that's where my university started, math, physics, good at that kind of stuff. I was a kid, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I followed the path I was told and got through and finished my degree. And the reason that's important is when Cutco, and I'll get to that later, when they first came to Canada, and even today, they still recruit a lot through university students. So
Okay.
I was one of the first reps that went through the program actually in Canada and was recruited at a university. And so I
Do
was an
what,
engineer
Dean?
to sell knives, to sell Cutco. For anybody
Oh,
that knows,
okay.
yeah, Cutco's the product I mainly work with, and I'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But
Okay, well, hold on. I
oh,
just gotta
sorry.
back up. So you were doing science, engineering, and then you get out of school and you go into sales.
Oh, I didn't even get out of school. That's the funny thing. I mean, I got my degree, so don't worry out there. I did finish school. That's important. But I mean, and entrepreneurs tend to bounce around, let's face
Mhm.
it. So I got my engineering degree. I realized that I don't want to be a prof, and I don't want to move down to NASA or the States, or the very limited fields where EP applies.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, what do I do now? And I've always liked teaching and sharing with people. So I went and I thought I'll get a post-secondary degree in education. So I went through that, and the summer before my internship. So I was done everything, ready to become a teacher, had an internship in the fall and needed to know what I was going to do for the summer. And lo and behold, I got hooked into the Cutco world, and I went to an interview and they pulled out knives. And I mean, you can imagine how that works. So I was like, hey, I'll give this a shot. And
How old are you, Dean?
I was 21. So
21.
starting out, yeah, I got started university early, and I thought, well, I'll give this a whirl. Never done sales before, so I didn't know what I was getting into, or the ups and downs there.
Were
But
you one of those kids that had like side jobs all the time, like mowing lawns and shoveling snow if there's snow where you are?
oh, if there's snow, all right, haha. Are you probably referencing the 12 inches that fell last week? Yeah, I have a bit of snow, and yeah, I was doing flyers when I was 8 or 9 years old. Had a paper route, went around. I guess that's
Hmm.
made my own money. So it was
You
worked
had the
from,
bug early.
yeah, and I that like shoveling snow, mowing lawns. I'd already think about, how much can I charge for this? What is it worth?
You're
How
doing
do I,
market research.
yeah, exactly. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but I just wanted to make the most of it. So yeah, right from the beginning, did that, worked all the way through high school, worked through university, paid for all of those things myself. And I didn't come from a huge affluent background. So to me, if you wanted it, you went out and got it yourself. And that
Were
was
your folks entrepreneurial? Were anybody in your family entrepreneurial?
Not so much. My mom went through the education system and was worked in the libraries, and my dad, he worked for a company, but he went up into management and helped grow them throughout his entire career. He was pretty much a one stop, and I got to know the owners of that company and see how it developed, and it's kind of interesting because I didn't through my own family, but he was pretty close with the family that owned the business.
It was
And
an influencer in your life.
yeah, exactly. And I guess the business and everything else was an influencer. So grew up through that, went through university. I actually worked there a couple of years in the summers. And so I got my degree, got hired, recruited by Cutco, was going to sell some knives in the summer. And I did that. Went out, talked to everybody, had, great fun, met people, learned about communication. And
Was it B2B or B2C, Dean?
that was B2C. And I like to think we kind of joke in the industry that it was trial by fire because if you think about it, taking a bag of knives, calling some, hey, I want to show you something, coming to their house, cutting up some carrots, some rope, leather, and saying, this is $1,000. Do you want to buy? So if you can go door to door, not door to door, it's all referral based, but if you can go into somebody's house and make calls and you'll go through that grind and then go and try and convince people to buy a high quality, expensive product and you can be successful, then I would say you can pretty much do it anywhere. There's some really top-notch stories of people that have come through that system. And I did really well my first summer, was one of the top 10 reps in Canada. From there, moved on to running a branch and then up to running a district for a while. And so I'd had a lot of experience and growth that way. And then I actually decided to move towards financial services. I'd always had
Okay,
a
I'm
path.
gonna pause you. I'm gonna pause you right there. Okay, because there's a you just jumped over a huge huge gap there. So for
Yep.
the sake of our audience, talk to me about some of the challenges that you faced. Going from a lone ranger. You're doing well on your own. You're killing it, and now you've got to put together a team because that's a place where a lot of entrepreneurs struggle, right? They're great on their own. They're good doing their thing. They're great solving their clients' problems. But then when they have to integrate a team and build all those moving pieces, things start to get a little tricky. So can you share with us some of the challenges that you face there?
Yep. Well, first of all, I completely agree. I think most entrepreneurs want to take the reins and build their own business because they want to take charge. I know I myself, I didn't chafe under somebody else, but I very much believed that I could do it best my own way, and so wasn't as open to instruction, shall we say, as
We're
most.
individualists. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. And I know better than my boss, right? So why not voice that? But seriously, I did that, and I actually jumped around through a couple of sales careers, if you can call them that, sales jobs, and kind of cemented in the fact that that just wasn't the life that I was cut out for. But I very much I started in sales. I did well in sales. Moving into management was an entire different beast, and I went through it a little bit, several years actually, and did okay. Hired some people, trained them, but my biggest challenge or frustration there
Yeah.
was I expected or I thought if I provide the information, provide the opportunity, that people will jump all over it just like I did. And lo and behold, again, 20 years later in hindsight, there's not as many people that do that as I would have thought. So
Mm.
there's a combination of, encouragement and support and helping to develop people, which is one thing, but pushing people. I mean, you're a coach, right? Your whole job is holding people accountable. And so I can't even imagine doing that as a job, but trying to encourage people to just simply go out and do what I tell them to do. And saying that out loud kind of sounds a little egotistical, but anyways, was
Well,
a
okay, but hold on. I mean, let's look at this. It worked for you, right? I mean,
exactly.
you're the kind of person, if someone puts a path in front of you, some steps in front of you, you go, okay, your logical brain kicks in, do A plus B plus C, and you'll get your result, right? It's mathematical for you, right? But for other people, of course, it's not the same. So what did you find was the key to getting people to execute the way they needed to execute to achieve the results? Like, was it a question of teaching, motivating, or was it a question of filtering for the right type of person, or a combination of the two?
um Yeah, I would say, I mean, to be honest, the filtering side was more so if you can you try it?
Mm.
It's not the can you fog a mirror exactly, but there's numbers of cases where people that I never would have expected, perform
Ah,
that did. and people that I thought were surefire wins that just wouldn't do it. So that was a learning curve. That's just human experience. You probably
So,
find
so
that.
you've came up with a way to just do an experiment, meaning here, try this, and then based on how they did with the try, it gave you the nod as to whether or not you were going to continue to invest in that person. Is that the idea?
Yeah, to some extent.
Okay.
If and again, it's I didn't know it at the time, but the format, direct sales, commission based, all those things are very difficult industries, very difficult careers, if not to pursue. And that's why they're so valuable now, is because very few people do that successfully. But yeah, motivating other people, like you said, engineering comes back into this. If you know an engineer, you know that we're a little bit different. We think a little bit different ways, and it's logical. So to me, it was, like you said, follow A, B, C, get D. And so I did it and I got the results. And so that to me made sense that, well, if you follow A, B, C, you will get D as well.
Yeah.
And yet people just wouldn't follow A, B, and C, and then they'd be surprised why they don't get D. So like we had a training and we were given scripts and things like that, and very important to really master what you're doing, what you're going to say. Winging it just doesn't cut it. So uh, we had assignments during training, go ahead and read this, make sure you understand. And so I immersed myself. I read it
Mm.
over. I learned it. I dreamt my first night all about this script. And then the next day, when we were practicing, I knew it. I was comfortable right off the bat. I mean, put a lot of work in, and it wasn't perfect by any means, but I'd I'd done what I was supposed to do. And so coming out of training eventually, I was competent, and most people weren't. So
Okay, I'm going to pause you there. So, okay, this is something that we have to like dig in a little bit.
sure.
We talked about you being an individualist. We talked about, you being the kind of person like most entrepreneurs that they like to forge their own path. And then you've got this other side of you that is very system oriented, who's okay with following a system in order to get the result that they're looking for, right? So that someone would say that there's a bit of a disconnect between those two things. There's like those two things almost, you know
Opposites.
they're opposites. They're contrasts. So how do you explain that?
Well, I think if I'm given the opportunity and made aware of the fact that when you do A, B, C, you get D, then it's up to me to do it. So I'm in charge.
Mm.
And it may be like a dichotomy, like you said, but if I'm told to do A, B, and C,
Ah, okay.
and that will create D for someone else, I don't know, just rubs me the wrong way. It's funny. I've learned a lot from myself in doing it the wrong way. And
Mm.
if
Well,
I'm
like
told,
most people.
yeah, exactly. So if I'm told do this, it works, it's proven. And I think, well, this doesn't really make sense to me, so I'm going to do it different. When I do that, I usually screw up and I usually learn from it. And in hindsight, the systems that have been proven actually were proven, go figure. And so when I came back to them, it was successful.
Okay,
But
so I think the
yeah.
learning there is, even if you're the kind of person like most entrepreneurs are, that you like to do things your own way, maybe you're a little oppositionally defiant, you're not so great at, just taking people's word for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think maybe the learning here is to say, look, despite that, test it, follow the system for X amount of time as an experiment, right? See
Mhm.
how it goes. Do it long enough that you can say you've mastered it, and then think about tweaking it.
Absolutely. And that is a successful formula. And that's what ended up happening. I took my advice. I maybe modified it a bit earlier, didn't see the success. One of the big things that I guess I'm proud of, and I think that would say is a key to my success where I'm at now, is I'm very open to and encourage constructive criticism.
Right.
Uh, I I have a reasonable ego, but I think that I'm able to, maybe it's the engineering. I'm able to step back and say, this isn't about me personally. It's an opportunity for me to get better. And I've always said that, right to currently, I ask my clients for feedback, and there's always room to improve. So I'm very open to that, and I may not agree with it. I may not do it, but I certainly don't take offense, and I don't think. I have to say this carefully. I don't think that I know everything, although maybe subconsciously I kind of do. But
Well, I
I'm
mean, you got to be confident when you're an entrepreneur. That's for sure. I mean,
yeah,
I think that's where the confidence comes out. Um, the being open to criticism. The I think that that ties directly into the engineering mindset, because engineers always want to make things better, right? Engineers are always trying to improve upon what is, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're aware of keeping your ego in check, of course, right? So
yeah.
that's cool, and you are, it seems. How big did your team get, Dean? How big of a team did you end up managing?
Well, being sales, it fluctuated. So it wasn't like a core, there were 10 people or whatever. There were times when, we had, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 salespeople, um, part-time, full-time, and then, there's conferences. So we worked as a management team. We kind of grew. We had districts and then divisions as we spread out to the national level.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I have a funny story here for you. So
Sure. We
I
like
did
funny stories.
a lot of group interviews. Again, it was a unique interview compared to probably what anybody else does, because again, pulling out knives and telling people we're going to cut stuff is not a typical interview part of it,
Could be a
but
little intimidating.
it can be, yeah. So I had a group, and again, keep in mind I was 21 at the
Wow.
time. I had a group of probably about 30 people in a group trainings interview seminar. So it was the second stage, and we are kind of assessing more of what we do and interest, and then kind of pairing that up. So I was doing my presentation, learned a lot of skills that way, which is very important. And I'm demonstrating some knives, right? That's part of what we would do with Cutco. And so I'm flexing a fishing knife, and great and everything. And I push a little too hard.
Uh-oh.
You don't tend to need to bend them to 90 degrees or whatever, but I was in the moment and everything, and I snapped it, and it flipped back and it stuck into me, and it everybody froze. So I'm a little bit of a funny, ironic kind of person. So I said, when it happened, I was in shock, and I was like, the good thing about this is that it's sharp and it's a clean cut, so it'll heal well.
And then they
And
rush you off to the hospital.
then I said, just a sec. I went back, and actually my wife was working with my current wife was working with me at the time. And I went into the office there, and she said, sit down, you're like a ghost. And I put my head down, and I was like on the verge of passing out.
Oh
And
my.
here's this room of 30 people that are wondering what the heck's going on. So needless to say, we didn't continue the interview at that point. We told people we'd get back to them and redo it. I went to the hospital, got some stitches, but I mean, who can say they've had a story like that? It's
You
just
actually bled for the company.
I did. I bleed red, even though, yeah, it's, and you would not be surprised that that wasn't the first cut
No
or
kidding.
scar or first story that I have, as per anybody that sells knives for a long period of time. But yeah, I mean, there were challenges that you'd never think of facing. How I certainly could have done anything better, but you have to be able to adapt, kind of go with the flow or take the punches and roll with them. And so that was just another example of
My big takeaway from that, Dean, is,
don't cut
we
yourself.
talked to some, yeah, don't get cut. Yeah, yeah, that's a big takeaway. The we talk to some owners, entrepreneurs, business owners, and they talk about, oh, it's hard to recruit salespeople, and we're talking about companies that are established, that have a good product, a product that is, a need to have product, not a nice to have product. And they're
Yep.
offering nice compensation packages, they're offering salaries, decent commission, packages, and they still complain they can't find good people. They still complain they can't find people that can perform. And here you are in a luxury brand business. You're looking at recruiting commission sales people, who by and large are doing B2B for a high ticket luxury item. I mean, I think some
B,
people would say that that's kind of like, the
B to C.
hardest. What's that?
I said B to C, not B to B.
Yeah, B2C. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, B2C. So, I mean, it's, I think we could say that's probably one of the toughest gigs you can have, you know, and yet you were successful in recruiting people. So I would imagine your recruiting process was quite strong. And I like the group interview setting. It's a really effective way from an efficiency point of view, but it's a great way to scan a lot of people and see how they interact with each other, and get, because when people are in a group they feel kind of anonymous. When you're in a one-to-one meeting, like in an interview, they're on their best behavior, and they're saying everything they're supposed to be saying, and blah blah blah. But when you get them in a group, you can really see them in the wild, if you will, and it
Yeah.
kind of informs, a lot about who they are. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's not just efficient for me to interview a number of people, but even before the interview, who's coming in? Are they mingling? Are they talking to other people? Are they
You
hiding
got
in?
it.
So there's a lot of things you can take from that, and it's the minutia that makes the difference in so many ways. So yeah, definitely that was, and I can't say that I was the genius that came up with it all. I mean, there was a structure and training and a process that we were taught as managers too. So there was that, but for sure that was an interesting time. So I did that for a number of years, and again, I think starting out, I was like, I was successful if I did this. So if I can share that information, all they have to do is do it.
Yep.
And
Copy paste.
lo and behold, a lot of people had trouble. And it's funny, again, one of the shyest guys I met did really well. And I never would have expected it. And some of the outgoing, like the typical
A-type
salespeople,
personalities.
yeah, would go out and just totally fall on their faces. So you never know, but there are some stereotypes that you kind of can get an idea of who will do better or not.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big misconception that the bombastic, outgoing A-type, personality is always going to succeed, because those folks often can't follow instructions, and those folks often can't handle rejection. They need to be they need to succeed all the time, and if they don't succeed, they usually move on to the next thing, right? So it becomes difficult in a lot of cases. Um, Talk to me about the product itself. I know it's different, and then maybe once we talk about the product a little bit, we can talk a little bit about some of the successes that you've had with Top of Mind, because I really want to get into that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Cutco has actually been around. It was a factory back in the 40s and 50s. So 1949, they were founded. They grew up in a pretty specific manner that even continues today. So it's their 75th anniversary right now. And
Wow,
they've been producing top-end quality products forever. Along that line, they've had right from day one a forever guarantee. Now,
wow.
that's not just lifetime, but they literally, as long as you have it, it's the product that's guaranteed. It's not the person, it's not the buyer, it's not the person that has the receipt. So
So even if you gift it to a family member or a friend or whatever, the guarantee goes with them.
absolutely. And I mean, I don't know, I won't mention names, but I was just talking to a fellow, and it's not the first conversation I had, that's going through a divorce.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know he even owned Cutco, but he's like, actually, yeah, afterwards, I have heard of Cutco before. I'm going through a divorce. My wife and I had it, and she got the Cutco, and I'm ticked off about that. And I'm like, of all the things in a divorce to be worrying about, but it's the knives. And I've
Who
heard,
gets the knives?
yeah, I've heard of estates, siblings and good, everything else, but they're like, so who gets the piano? Who gets this? And it's like, oh, who gets the Cutco? And I've seen people that have divided it up because it's not fair for only one person to get it. So it's intergenerational, it's permanent forever, it's guaranteed that way. And the big thing there for me is not necessarily, I had no idea anything about knives. I mean, but looking back, to be able to have that kind of confidence and to be able to have a product that you can stand behind and that will stand behind you is so vital. I had gone into some other sales, I've done some other things, and again, my engineering side is a little bit susceptible to that. If I'm told it's good or it'll do this, I believe it, and Cutco follows through. I've had a number of other things where same thing, I'm told this will happen and then it doesn't happen. And now with a little bit of experience, I know that that's not always the case, that people aren't necessarily 100% true all the time, and that you shouldn't believe everybody and everything they say on the spot.
So the takeaway I get from this is, and this is good for everybody.
Yep.
Um, the concept of over promising and under promising and over delivering, right? The stand behind your product and care more about the product from the point of view of how it's going to serve the client than the money. Like then I mean, yes, we have to make a profit. Don't get me wrong. Everybody knows that that's important, but if the quality is there and it's head and shoulders above the competition, then
Yep.
the profit should follow if you know how to properly accentuate those differences, right? If you can teach and educate your clients, the difference between the quality, then there's always a quality buyer. You just need to attract the right quality buyer.
Yeah, for sure. And there's always going to be people that are solely based on price. And quite honestly, you're better off not working with them. I've heard so many stories of people that say, I got into this and they nickel and dime and stuff. And whether they close them or not, they're like, I don't want to deal with them again. And
Yeah.
it's very hard as a new business person, an entrepreneur, to be able to turn those people away. And sometimes you can't. I mean, you need to build, you need to make money where you can. But especially as you get more established, to have a clear set of guidelines of, this is who I want to work with, identify that, do some planning, and then stick to your guns.
And there's
Um,
nothing wrong with firing clients.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and I think I've had to do it, and it is much more difficult than you think, or you might if you haven't done it before. But it's one of those almost subconscious things too, that when you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much of a weight that was. And if you can direct that time into focusing on the right kind of clientele, the people that you like working with, I mean, it's a world of difference.
Yeah.
Makes your job fun instead of dreaded.
Yeah. And usually clients like that know other clients like that. Right. So if you attract that type of clientele by referral, you will get more of the same. If you have a good referral program, if you have a good referral sales program. But
Uh,
that's really, really, really important. We could probably have a whole episode just on that.
yep.
Talk to us about the product itself.
Sure. Well, Cutco is a high-end product,
Do you
and
have one you can show us?
oh, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't have a bunch of knives at their desk, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a paper cutter from opening envelopes. Not
Okay.
something like you have, that's for
I,
sure.
I don't normally go into that. I'll show you the product, but uh, how's
Oh
that?
my, that's your letter opener?
That's my letter opener. So I don't know. It's one of the award levels we get at Cutco, but yeah, the sword is awesome. But this
Nice.
is the typical kind of product. So
Yep.
your normal kitchen knives, your utility ones that you're using every day, and I'll talk about why that's important, but really high end. And it's not that it's the only company that has high end products. I don't think there is a perfect solution in anything for anyone, but it is very high quality. It's something that, price tag goes with that. And again, it fits, I call it customer proof because we've designed it for the average homeowner. And therefore, it's something that's very applicable and for gifting and referrals and so on. But there's other products that are out there that are great as well. So I never tell people this is the only thing and I'm the best, but I want to say that, you know what, if it's quality and if you can find it, I've chosen to work with Cutco because there's so many good things about it. But people say, well, what about this? What about that? And I'm open to telling people there's other options. I mean, you can do that. But honesty, integrity, support. I mean, I haven't seen any other company that has a forever guarantee, much less, most of them lifetime guarantees. So that speaks volumes. And I've personally gone through that experience.
And surviving 75 years, is just that alone,
Yeah.
like surviving and thriving, for 75 years, that alone says so much.
Oh, and I started whatever 30 years ago, and I thought, well, how on earth, if you guarantee the product forever, there's only so many people, right? So how can this go on forever? And 30 years later, they're still doing better than ever, selling more than ever, and it keeps going. So I don't know. I guess in theory, when everybody has their entire set in the world, then maybe we'll run into a problem. But it
Thank
seems
God we're still making babies.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, so that's the product. And I've one of the things, people say, well, I've been promised that before. What if the company goes out of business? So the history is important there. But I've actually taken my own set. Obviously, I'm a big believer in you've got to do what you say, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. And I had my set and I've used them my whole life. I love them. And after about 18 years, now keep in mind, this is a knife set I've had for 18 years. I've never had it sharpened. So I said, well, the company said they'll sharpen it for free. So I sent it back and they did. They sharpened it. They actually replaced a couple of the pieces because they were worn, and they came back brand new. So I didn't realize, how much you can improve it. But they stood behind their word, their guarantee, and without even asking, they sent me back new pieces, sharpened some, sent me back new ones because they pride themselves on having a certain level of product and delivery. So they go through that without even asking it. And to me, that was really something to reflect on and say, if I'm getting this treatment without asking, I know my customers will. And that makes it easy for me to be confident in telling people and sharing that information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. When we talk to young entrepreneurs, we talk to people who are maybe making the transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur. One of the big pieces of advice that I give, and many other experts, go try it. Like go do it. Like do it as a side gig. Just try it. Like have you tried the product? Like if before you dive in, you should experiment with it and get to know it from a quality point of view, get to know it from a company point of view, get to know it from the business point of view before you make the jump. Because it's not just the product on the outside that you need to be concerned with. It's the people behind the product that you need to be concerned with. It's that those are you can't ignore one or the other. So get to know the product before you start. You choose to stand behind it. Right. That's really important.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
important. And I can say from personal experience, I worked with Dean on a project. I needed something last minute. It had to be customized, and the deadline was tight. He had it at my doorstep, perfect. He had limited. I didn't even return his email. Sometimes he had limited feedback from me, and he got it perfect right off the bat. So I can say that really Dean does deliver on his promise. So you're an expert and you're a pro, and I really appreciate that. It's a big part of why you're on the podcast right now. Okay, talk about your clients. So now top of minds. Okay, you were at Cutco, now you're top of mind. So tell everybody what top of
Yeah.
mind is, and talk about maybe some of the clients you've helped in with your unique way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you talked about, following up and things, and I just want to highlight that I've been told by a number of people that I've been the most persistent person. I've followed up for years in some cases with people, and they give me credit for that. Now, I take that as one of the biggest compliments as a successful salesperson as you can get. I'm positive, I'm pleasant, but if you tell me to follow up, I will follow up to the end of days. And I tell people, if you don't want me to follow up, just tell me, I'll stop. But if you don't say that, I will hold on and I will keep going forever.
It's always no for now. It's not no forever.
If you just keep going long enough, you will eventually succeed and so on. And that's kind of everybody's heard about it, but it's the 90%. If you go 90% towards your goal and then just give up and go back 90% a different way to a different goal, you'll never achieve it. And you never know when the 100% is until you pass that threshold. So that's very much something that I've learned, and I would say it's
It
easy
applies
to
to everything. It applies to everything.
yeah. So then Cutco's great. I was, sold at retail. I started and ran financial services, my own company in a different manner for a decade, and then had to turn around. And long story short, my daughter, in the exact same way, was recruited to sell Cutco
Oh
um,
wow.
20 years later. So I'd always wanted to talk to some of the management and so on I'd worked with before, and that was a perfect opportunity. So I got back in touch and they had a new program instead of B2C, a B2B program. So you've got a product
Mm.
quality, people love it. It's expensive though, and that's, one of the biggest challenges with quality is that it costs. So I thought, well, this makes sense if you have something that the end user wants and loves, and you're a business that's budgeting for spending money on something, that's a good recipe. And so I jumped into that. More so than I thought I was going to be originally, and got going. And then
You thought it was going to be a side gig, right?
I did, yeah. And I guess you could say I was, trying it out, and
Yeah.
like you said there, and just got really passionate. I think that's another thing that's important. You have to believe and be passionate about what you do, whatever it is. People understand and they can tell when you're genuine and when you're not. And so that was very important. And I dived all over that. Again, my engineering side, I'm sometimes frustrated when people don't get it. And because I know the best, right? I know what's best for everybody. But I dove into that. So she came back, I talked to them, and they'd said there's this B2B program. So I went into that, started talking to people. The business mainly started from the real estate industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Realtor. If you've ever
Mm-hmm.
bought a house, you get a closing gift, things like that. And so it was like, hey, if you're going to spend money, and this is a key thing too, um, I think a lot of people in a way of trying to be fair to their clients, to all of their clients, they will equally divide their resources, their finances, and try and make everybody happy.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah. The
right,
everyone gets a gold star mentality.
yeah, and I'll tell you right now, it's just not the case. Unfortunately, 80/20, 90/10 even nowadays is the way the world works. So what I looked at there is if you're going to spend money, if you're going to invest in people and relationships, you get a better return on investment by picking those key referral clients, the ones that are going to work with, that are going to be happy with you, that you're happy with, turning just an average client into a referral client, turning
Yeah,
a referral client into an advocate. And what I
yeah,
mean by that is somebody that will go out of their way to refer people to you just because of how impressed they are.
yeah.
So,
It's like if you kind of impress 10 people moderately and you get almost no bump from it, right?
yeah,
They get it, they go, meh, okay.
yeah,
But you pick two people who could be really good for your business and you give them an amazing experience and it blows their mind and they can't stop talking about you to all their friends and associates. That's the key, right? That's what we want to do.
exactly. And that's not just more business, right? That's more of the best kind of business.
Yeah.
So it just compounds exponentially over time. It takes time. So sometimes, if not that you're in it for this, but if people are looking at the short term, like I said, I've followed up with people for 2 and 3 years, still following up with some. So it's not necessarily quick. And kind of you'd mentioned A-type personalities. I think that's one of the challenges if you are, or if you're dealing with A-types, is there's a need or an expectation. I want to be successful now. And again, it sometimes happens. It sometimes takes a while, but you have to stick it out. And another challenge is sometimes the opposite. You're really successful right away, and you think that that's going to be the case going forward. And I have to tell you, it's never a perfect, rise to glory and a continued path that way. There's always going to be bumps, no matter how well you do, and you can have great success coming from a really rough start. So, and that's what entrepreneurship is
I
all
think
about.
the other thing that we could learn from your story, Dean, is that you kind of took it in a stepwise fashion. Like you got to know the company, you got to know the people. You did it inside out. It wasn't just, you didn't just take it at face value. You did your homework, you did your research, you surrounded yourself with the right kind of people, and you did your test. Like you tested the product, and then you said, okay, this is a product that I can get behind. I can believe in this product. And then you can just focus on the delivery rather than always have those nagging doubts about whether or not this is the right product for my clients.
Yeah.
So
You,
talk to
you,
us about how you've used the product, how your clients have used the product to improve their business. I know that a big
mm,
part of what you do is helping your clients to be successful. Like that little story you told us about. give the right gift to the right person so that they become a raving fan, right? That's a tactic, that's a strategy, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good one. What have been some of the other success stories you've had with the clients?
Well, I work with, initially a lot of realtors and mortgage brokers, and one that kind of stands out is a fellow, again, they're giving knives, and when you give a knife, it's not something that's normal. I mean, like, hey, I got a knife for you. Well, nobody's really ever done that,
It's not a
and
baseball cap, it's not a polo shirt, it's not a notebook, it's a knife.
it's a
And it's a
knife.
really
So,
freaking sharp knife.
exactly. So it's something that's unusual. And the way you deliver, it's kind of an important thing too. The way you deliver anything, that comes back to the passion. Be skeptical up front, but when you do dive in, commit 100%. I mean, you've got to have the passion and the belief in what you do. So working with this realtor, he'd given out some knives to clients and, they loved them and used them. They had a dinner party and the knives had come out. I mean, part of the reason this is such a great business model for me is that I looked at it, gifts that are disposable, that are consumable. There's no ROI on them. I've been at trade shows where you see all the pens and all the notepads, and you literally can see people grabbing them and throwing them out halfway down the aisle, which environmental and other stuff. But it's just what a waste of money.
Yeah.
So believing in it, and the reason we use Cutco is because it's something everybody uses. They use it every day, and that's what creates top of mind awareness with the business. So anyway, this person had a dinner party. They had four friends over, and they got talking about the knives. Somebody said, oh, where'd you get that? We have some really nice, the white pearl handles and things like that. And they said, oh, and when we moved in, my realtor gave it to us. And I don't know the full conversation, of course, but in the end, that realtor got three different referrals plus the initial client. So got four good quality, I won't say easy sales, but good sales. And if you know real estate, there's a pretty good commission in the end when you close somebody.
Yeah, nice
So
ROI on a knife that maybe cost a couple $100 or a few $100s, right?
yeah, if you can turn $200 into 100 grand, uh, I'd take that every day. So something like that is really, I mean, not everybody, of course, but with any kind of business that has, I'll say, valuable clientele, and that this again comes back, everybody's valuable, every client's important. But when you get to the numbers as a math guy, there are certain people that are simply worth more. So if you're
Yeah.
in the kind of business where you invest heavily in those people, the return is huge. And so that's why we use Cutco. We want to stay top of mind. There's a huge gap, and if you don't know this as an entrepreneur, better learn it quick. That there's a huge gap between people that like you and would refer you, and you think would refer you, and being given referrals.
Yeah.
And it's not because they don't like you. It's not because they wouldn't work with you. For the most part, it's as per my company, it's top of mind.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I everybody's been in that situation at the lake, at the mall, where somebody says, hey, do you know a good roofer, or do you know somebody that does insurance, whatever? And they go, oh yeah, my guy's great. What was his name again? And
I'll
you've
find
seen
his
that
number and I'll get back to you.
exactly, and just so you know, that never happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
just doesn't. So how do you find something where you can impact people every day, every week, forever,
Yeah.
and have your branding, have your name out there? So that's why we went with Cutco and knives in general, is it really ticked off a lot or checked off a lot of those boxes. And then we systemize the whole thing too. So, again, I've got some clients that you get busy, you get successful, it's important to appreciate and recognize, but that's not your business. And it's honestly, it becomes a pain for a lot of people. Christmas time, especially, they're like, oh, what am I going to do this year? How am I going to do different? I've got to find it, I've got to buy it, I've got to prepare it, send it out. That can be a lot of work and a lot of stress. So when we step in and say, we'll do all of that for you, and they go, wow, I
Yeah. So
can do,
just give us a budget, give us the contact information, and we'll take care of the rest.
yeah, exactly. And it's a thoughtful gift. It's personal. We can engrave and brand it individually, but it's not something they have to think about all the time.
Right.
And so that was part of the key. And I think, I don't know if we talked about this, but it's little things in any business. What you see from the surface, from the outside, is one thing. What you understand from the backside is a whole different story. And if you do it right, and if you focus on every part of it, and you do the little things that sometimes are very frustrating, you think, why am I bothering? that all comes together. We've talked about that 1%, and you'd be amazed at how important that is. So when you do all the pieces right, the end product, the end result, the impact of the client, that all comes together, and that's what gives you the success and the results from it. So having that system for people is not just about saying, hey, we'll do it. It's about making sure that the couriers are accountable, that we track records, that we know where things are at in the process, that we make sure the customer, we understand the customer, huge thing there, understand what their genuine needs are, take some time, and then make sure that's delivered. I like to say that I have 110% expectation. So I want to be able to deliver everything you want and a little bit more. And again, I'm open to feedback. So if that's not the case, and I'll say I've had situations where couriers screw up, where there's a misengraving. So it's not like everything works the way I want it to, but how you deal with that can be much more important. And it's funny for some people to think, but the most negative situation or client in some cases can become your biggest raving fan
If you turn them around.
if you turn, yeah, if you turn them around.
Yeah.
But
If you
look,
handle it well. I mean, even if you screw up, if you handle it well, if you take care of the client well, then usually it works out to your favor. I mean, if there's good intentions all around, obviously.
yeah, if you have the right idea, the right product, everybody knows nothing's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, but how you deal with that, if they can say, you know what, this didn't go the way I wanted initially, but they were there, they listened to me, they dealt with the problem, it was efficient, I would definitely deal with them again.
Yeah.
That can become a huge source of great business, because in some cases nowadays, simply delivering on what you say you're going to deliver
That's the
is,
cost of entry.
and it's actually, it's not an expectation, it's not an assumption. Nowadays it's a bonus, just doing what you say you're going to do.
Oh,
So that's so key.
yeah.
So
For me,
I'm
it's for me, that's just the basic point of entry. Doing what you're supposed to do is like the basic point of entry. But yes, I get you. I mean, I think especially post COVID, we've been programmed with this automatic response. Oh well, we would have gotten that done, but COVID. This we used to do this, but COVID, and it seems like to be the go-to excuse for bad service these days.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
100. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. But Amazon can still deliver next day. I don't know. Somehow they're able to do it.
If they send the right product and it's not damaged and in a box that's been
Yeah.
shredded. No,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, Dean, this is great. What are you working on now? What is hot for you right now? What is there something that our audience should know? That you're getting involved in? Is there some new product coming out, or is there a new program coming out? What should we be top of mind with you? Right.
Yeah. Well, again, I think the people that focusing on the right kind of clientele is important. Cutco, being 75 years old, doesn't move quickly on changing things. When it's working, keep it. But I think the concept, the paradigm nowadays has shifted from grind everybody for all you can get, every nickel and dime, to much more relationship based, especially with the internet. It's hard to discern what's real and what's not. So having those relationships, having those referrals is very key. And the employee situation, if you have staff or large employees or key employees, keeping them happy, there's always somebody nowadays out there trying to outbid you, and
Mm,
there's opportunities for them to fly. So how do you keep them, and how do you keep your clients in the same way? So we've focused on saying appreciation, love on them, do
yeah.
above and beyond. And we do that with Cutco. If there's other things you can do it with, great. And that will return, tenfold back to you. So,
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, not just thinking about giving gifts to your clients and maybe key suppliers, but then your key staff, right? Because those people are just as pivotal in being able to deliver to your client as anybody else, obviously.
oh, even more so in some cases.
Yeah,
It's funny that you have $1 million, 10 million, $100 million businesses that treat their employees poorly, shall we say,
yeah,
and and they don't think about it. A nice Christmas gift. We have a build a set program where people get a different piece every year, so they buy into that, they feel like they're appreciated. Something as small as that can translate into hundreds of thousands of dollars of business and client service. And you can tell when you're dealing with somebody that likes the company they work for, they'll step out of their way, they'll go the extra mile.
For
Um,
sure.
and you can tell when somebody doesn't like the company they work for, they just don't care.
Yeah.
So keeping your staff happy, that's a big part of what we can do is group programs, years of service recognition. And then the client side, of course, how do you give a gift that's different? And on that, I just want to say too, there's a lot of things that we've done that are those little 1% to make the experience the best for the customer.
Yeah.
If you have the right packaging, the right presentation, we've developed scripts for our businesses to use to give the gifts. Now, I don't know if I
Mm.
use it, but we've done a lot of little things behind the scenes to really make it maximum value for the client, which then becomes maximum value for the business that's doing it.
Yeah, you're taking out the friction points. I mean, the easier it is to deal with you for the client, then it's a win-win, right? It eliminates, I'm sure, a lot of problems, eliminates a lot of mistakes, and
Yep.
it allows the client to use your product easily without having to work on it, without the deal. Yeah, I get it. Makes
Find
perfect sense.
out your customers' pain points and eliminate them for them, whatever they may be. And you've got a recipe for success.
Yeah, 100%. How can people reach you, Dean? What's the best way for people to contact you, to find you? Is it a website? Is it social media? What's the best way?
Um, Best way is to call me.
Ah, okay.
I'm old school. I like to talk to my clients and deal with them personally. So obviously we have the rest. We have the website. It's www.topofmindgifts.ca.
Okay.
So just like the name, email, same thing, dean@topofmindgifts.ca. But I love a phone call. So my number, I'll put it out there, is
Yeah,
three oh.
we'll put the number in the title and the titling, and so everyone will have the number. So you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about remembering it. That's great. I love it. I love the personalized service. And I think people are so conditioned to go through some kind of a web form, or a landing page, or things like that. It's nice to know that someone will just pick up the phone and talk to you. So that's great. And I'm sure, I mean, the years of experience that you have putting these gift programs together makes a big difference. I mean, there's a whole consulting aspect to it. I mean, just jumping on Amazon and picking things randomly is not the same as having somebody with 30 years of experience guiding you through the process. I mean, that's amazing.
It's strategic giving. It's not just finding a gift.
Excellent. Well, Dean, this has been fabulous. I want to do this again, and I think what we talk about next time is more about the recruiting and managing salespeople, because I think that's something that is a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I think your years of experience would definitely be an asset. So we should have a conversation about that.
Absolutely. Love to come back. And for
All right.
any of your listeners, George, if
Yeah.
they give me a shout and they want to look at some different gift ideas, I'm happy to chart or to talk, have a conversation. There's no charge or anything like that. And I always love to do this. My biggest, best customers are users of the product too. So anybody that mentions this when they give me a shout and what a great guy George is and so on, um, I'm going to give them some Cutco for free.
All
Just
right.
my
Cool.
appreciation and get them started too.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, Dean. Thanks for being on Lead Like a Boss. You definitely are a boss leader. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.
You bet. Thanks, George. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye now.
Bye.